Hello, all of my star pupils. I'm glad to see you and talk with you today. So a couple different things that I actually wanted to do today because I'm going to be posting another video, but I wanted to kind of give some background for what we will be doing this month. For October, as you all know, it is Halloween this month. Autumn, leaves are changing, things are getting good, the pumpkin spice lattes if you're into that. So what I'm going to do for the month of October is, instead of doing astro classes on astrology, tarot, crystals, things like that, I'm going to be focusing on topics that are all either autumn based or they are all Halloween based. So for example, today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be giving a brief history on pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns. We're going to be doing a few craft items, making a pumpkin terrarium, just doing something different for you. If you do want to craft, I will have a list in the description box below if you want to look at all of the elements that we're going to be using to make the pumpkin terrarium. I just wanted to give this intro video before we started that actual project, only because it's going to be very hard for me to manipulate the camera, and I wanted to make sure that you guys at least could see what I was doing for the project, and then before we can just give a brief history. So pretty much in October, each week what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a theme from either Halloween, autumn, things of that nature, and kind of giving you guys a little bit of a class-like structure where I can give you, a brief history of certain things. Like this time we're doing pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, and we're going to be talking a lot about that. I'm also going to have an activity along with that so that it just gives you guys something different for different content. So let's jump right into the video. So we're going to be starting this first week of October with the history of pumpkins or jack-o'-lanterns. It's this time of year that a lot of people go pumpkin picking. They do the apple picking situation. I mean, again, because I'm from the East, so I don't know where everyone is located, and I don't know what everybody does have access to, but it's a pretty well-known thing that in most of the United States, we do have access to pumpkins. With Halloween, if you do celebrate that type of tradition, again, wherever you are in the world, pumpkins are a very, very big part of that. So I wanted to start this October video off with that because it's a really interesting topic. So pumpkins, where did pumpkins originate? How did that all pretty much come about? How did jack-o'-lanterns come about? Why do people carve faces into pumpkins? That type of situation. I'm going to be following along with some notes so that you guys have some type of information for that. But the thing that I think is so interesting about jack-o'-lanterns in particular is that they're very spiritual. There's a very spirit-like quality to them with the face and with the mannerisms. I know that people now have gone craft crazy with pumpkins. You no longer have to grow pumpkins in order to carve them, that type of situation. So essentially, archaeologists discovered the oldest domesticated pumpkin seeds were actually in Oaxaca, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I will actually link it down below, the spelling of it. Oaxaca Highlands. So they were originated in Mexico. So this is the first ever domestic pumpkin, basically. So a pumpkin like you would eat for a pumpkin pie or for just a regular pumpkin. They found the seeds actually buried beneath the sand very deep into the ground. Pumpkins originated actually in Central America over 7,500 years ago, which I also found very, very interesting because to me, I would not expect that pumpkins would have originated in Central America at all. So that was interesting for me to find out. In the beginning of this time period, pumpkins were not as big actually as you see them currently today, which is also interesting because pumpkins were germinated to have cross-breeding sections of the seeds to actually make the pumpkins be relatively larger than they, you know what I mean, than they were back then. It's funny because you'll see like in places like Trader Joe's, Target, all of these places, they always have the little mini pumpkins that are about the size like this big. I mean, I'm sure that most of, you know, you have seen them, but it's interesting that that's how small that they actually started. They started at the size of a potato because they were easy to cut, they were easy to peel, they were easy to basically throw into food sources. So that was interesting. Actually, when pumpkins were smaller, they were very hard to eat, and they were also very, very bitter, and their flesh had medicinal qualities. So a lot of times people who grew pumpkins back then, or if they needed to harvest them, would use them and dry them out. They would use them for a lot of different soups and stews and medicinal things. So that was also pretty much interesting. Pumpkins also too are part of the gourd family. So I'm not sure if a lot of you buy gourds for if you're, you know, entertaining and you're trying to like decorate things like that, but they're part of that family. The largest pumpkin pie ever baked was in 2005. And basically what's interesting about this too is that it takes so much effort to, if you are going to make a pumpkin pie, it takes so much effort to flash steam the actual pumpkins, because again, the smaller the pumpkin is, the harder and the bitter the flesh is going to be. The bigger a pumpkin is, the sweeter the flesh is, the easier it is to cut and things of that nature. But a lot of times with pumpkin pie pumpkins that you see in the store, they are oftentimes smaller, but it's because they have so much of that concentrated flavor. So you have to actually add flavors in to actually make a very good pumpkin pie. So that was interesting as well. So that's just a little bit of a background about, you know, pumpkins themselves. So jack-o'-lanterns, how did this whole situation with jack-o'-lanterns come about? What was the reason that people took pumpkins and then made this tradition for Halloween of having jack-o'-lanterns? Well, what's interesting is that jack-o'-lanterns were originally carved for the purpose that it was believed back then as a tradition that those faces that were carved into the pumpkins would actually drive away evil spirits. They, you know, on All Hallows Eve, obviously October 31st, the veil between the living and the deceased is very, very thin. A lot of people believe that their loved ones were able to come back. They were able to communicate with their loved ones. It's been part of that tradition. But it also, as it opens up the room for more good, you know, for good spirits and for people to speak and everything of that nature, it also opens up, they believe, a lot of thinning of evil spirits, this and that. So they basically decided, you know, whoever started this, that it was a spiritual tradition to carve a pumpkin to actually deflect any negative energy, negative spirits from the home back then. And that had been going on for centuries, since the 1600s. The also first jack-o'-lanterns that were ever carved were not carved out of pumpkins. They were actually carved out of turnips, and they were carved out of potatoes. What's interesting is that a lot of people did not have access to the pumpkin seeds, and depending on the climate that you're in, because pumpkins really thrive in a dry climate. They thrive in something that's a little bit warmer. And of course, with the east, you know, and even down south, it might be too dry. So not everybody had access to the great access of pumpkins. Pumpkins actually also too were thought of for more of the wealthy. They were thought of as a more sought after gourd than maybe squash, than maybe something else. But you can harvest pumpkins, but it was also very difficult to do so. So a lot of, you know, poor low-income families would use turnips, they would use potatoes, and then what's so funny is that they would actually put them out, and then depending on if the, you know, if the turnip was never eaten or the potato was never eaten, that person would have good luck for the next, year up until the harvest time. So that was interesting as well. Now, the people who actually discovered that carving pumpkins was better than using turnips and potatoes was actually Irish immigrants. So when Irish immigrants first came to America, they actually found that by harvesting pumpkins and carving pumpkins, that this was easier instead of carving potatoes and turnips and leaving them out, because pumpkins don't rot as readily as turnips and potatoes do. And obviously with the Irish immigrants, they wanted to save as many potatoes as they possibly could. So that was also very interesting. Again, this is just a small snippet of the history of pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns. So the next time that you actually think about making, either you can craft your own pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern, you can, carve your own. It's interesting to think about where these traditions came from. Autumn and the harvest was very much a time of paying off debts back in the day. It was very much a time for reflection. It was a time for, coming back into the home a little bit better. So this is all very, very interesting that we use this tradition of carving pumpkins, of placing pumpkins outside. Pumpkins spiritually really are that type of mainstay that a lot of even Wiccans, practitioners, they use pumpkins as a way to, again, ward off evil spirits, ward off negativity. Pumpkins have such a wonderful glowing color, a glowing type of light to them. Again, why putting a light in the pumpkin, as we always say, it's to, bring light, to kind of trap that evil spirit into the pumpkin or to deflect that type of light even in the darkness. So I think that that's also too very interesting to take away from all of this. So the next time that, any of my, Star Pupils are going out there trying to do the pumpkin thing, I mean, you can think about that too as well, that it is a spiritual thing, that the reason why pumpkins are so readily available now, versus back then. And you can use it as, even if you're using pumpkins, I have heard of many practitioners using pumpkins as a source of manifestation. You can simply be carving and be concentrated enough to manifest something. And then by putting a candle in, any type of different colored candle, depending on what you do want to manifest, and then burning that through the night also does help as well to manifest or to have the law of attraction. I've also read a lot of that too, which is interesting that that's part of the Halloween tradition. So in a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign off from this video. I'm also going to be making a pumpkin terrarium. So we're going to start that video, which is very, very simple to do with very easy things that you may have around your home. You can find at a craft store at this point. You can, have Amazon send it to you. So we're going to be working on that a little bit. And then tomorrow I'm going to be doing another pumpkin video. I just need to gather some things for that type of project, just so that at least you have something, to do if you're really interested in that type of thing, and to kind of get the, the astro classes to be more hands-on, because it's a little bit better, if you need to do something to have a hobby or a craft of that nature. So I'm going to be signing off, but I did also want to note that the next week, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be talking mostly about the history of witches. We're talking about the witch character for Halloween. How did that whole thing come about? And we're also going to be doing another fun project with that as well. So that's going to be our topic for the next week when I upload. I'm going to be trying to upload videos mostly on Sundays still, but I may have to upload during the week as well, because these are so inundated and all of these classes together and everything. I want to make sure that you all have the information that you do need. But until I see you for the pumpkin terrarium video, I wish everybody a happy autumn. And I hope that if you haven't had a chance, please hit that like button or subscribe. And if you also, all my Libras out there, if you haven't had a chance to see the Libra birthday video, definitely I will link that down below so that you can go and take a look at that. Again, all my Libras out there. And until we do the pumpkin terrarium video, I am telling all of you to keep it starry, keep it light, and keep it astro classy. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.